Welcome back, Fantasy Moto fans, to the PulpMX Fantasy Show. I'm Donnie from RotoMoto, and in this video I have 5 riders I want you to look at when making your picks for Minneapolis, tips for picking the FFL, the weather report, race day schedule, and an early look at what my team could be come Saturday night. And stick around to the end to find out how you could win a race-use front number plate like this one, fresh off the front of Christian Craig's race-winning bike autographed by both CC and his mechanic. But first, as always, we start the video off with some stats and info from last weekend in Anaheim. 18,685 total players set their lineups, the biggest single round dip of 2020 thus far, but the Championship League is holding steady at 9,408 members of the paying league. The most popular team, or the sum of points for the riders with the highest pick trend, was again a respectable 240, proving yet again that getting cute doesn't always cut it. 240 even with Martin 0 is a massive score, considering the popular team also only included one of the half dozen 52s last weekend. The median score of the Championship League is 201, meaning if you scored 202 or more, you did better than half of the paying field. But no matter how bad you struggle every weekend, remember that it could be worse. This guy picked 8 guys that have made at least one main event this season and still only managed to get 3 in the main. The Lion Smith pick is a little suspect, but the rest of the team is an honest attempt gone horribly wrong. Jason Anderson pulled his first FFL in years on his way to a convincing win, rewarding just over 300 players that picked him for this uncharacteristic feat. Craig got his 3rd FFL in the last 4 gate drops, finally cementing himself as the preseason favorite that we all pegged him as, with 75% of people that picked an FFL in the class going with the championship leader. After an easy week of guaranteeing 8 in the main, the 0-point monster bites again. Big loser of the week, Alex Martin, and the 27.3% of players that picked him, just barely edging out Justin Rodbell in the 250 class. A grand total of 105% of pick trend brought home 0 points, meaning more teams had 2 zeros than teams that had none. Steve backs up his first victory of the season by picking Craig for the FFL to finish just barely ahead of Dan Truman in the weekly league. Myself and Paul tied for the bottom step of the podium, with JT bringing up the rear again. Literally no change to the championship standings. Dan extends his lead slightly and JT falls even further out, but it is still within 100 points of the lead, with Paul and Steve in a hot battle for who climbs up onto the podium going into the first East Coast round. Speaking of East Coast, this is the very first round of the East 250 Regional Championship. The 450 All-Stars are exactly the same as last week, so let's take a look at the 8 250 All-Stars. We have 5 former race winners on the gate this weekend, and they are all All-Stars. That's Jet Lawrence, Jeremy Martin, Austin Faulkner, Cameron McAdoo, and Jordan Smith. The other 3 All-Stars are veterans of the class that have regularly finished inside the top 10, Kyle Peters, Mitchell Oldenburg, and RJ Hampshire. And this leaves some interesting factory riders at double points, notably Pierce Brown, who was seen on the podium in 2021, and Max Voland, who finished in the top 10 in all 3 of his starts last season. A bit of injury news, Travis Marks has added a little red notification on the riders that are 100% definitely not riding this weekend. So if you see a guy with that icon, make sure to steer clear of them this weekend. And also, as an extra level of security, be sure to check the little box next to only show riders in the AMA qualifying results to, you guessed it, only show riders that have put down at least 1 lap in qualifying. This isn't foolproof and will still include riders that were injured during qualifying or missed the Fast 40, but it should help against those silly mistakes. The only 250 injury to report this week is Jess Pettis. The Canadian champion recently announced he would miss the entire season, but that was after the handicaps were already posted. The 450s will see 2 changes. Joss Hill will miss likely the rest of the 2022 season after a huge practice crash last weekend, and Alex Ray looks to return in Minneapolis after missing the previous 2 races with a wrist injury, looking to make his first main event of the year. Alright, on to your Minneapolis picks. I have 3 guys to target, 1 to avoid, and a high handicap guy for you gamblers out there, starting with the little class and working our way up. With everyone starting fresh at 0, a bad race could turn any of these guys double eligible next week. So I'm looking at what All-Star I think has the least chance of finishing outside the top 8. In this case, it's Jet Lawrence. He has only a 1 handicap, but that is deserved. He won 3 races last season while finishing on the podium in 5 of the 9 races. His handicap may leave a little to be desired, as the opening round has plenty of talent to keep him off the podium, but I would gladly give up a few points of upside to protect myself from a dumpster fire. A double eligible rider that I'm targeting for Minneapolis is Pierce Brown. There are 28 guys signed up this weekend with a 2-digit number, meaning a lot of guys that deserve to be in the main will not make it, so either you gamble on getting the right high handicap guys or you guarantee everyone is in the main. I will take the latter. Pierce finished 4 of his 5 main events last season in the top 9 with a podium at Daytona. Even during the East-West Showdown, Pierce finished a very respectable 7th, showing that he can come through even when the field is deeper. Onto the 450 side, I'm finally going for a high handicap all-star. It's the East Coast, so you know what that means? The web will eat. Or at least that is the hope for this season. Cooper comes into Minneapolis with a 7 handicap, needing just 8th to max out. His last 3 events, he's gone 8, 8, 8, and is one of only 3 riders to finish in the top 8 in every single main event this season. The 450 rider that I want you to avoid for the 2nd straight week is Dean Wilson. The Rockstar Husqvarna rider just simply has no value at a 1. His average qualifying, start, and finish are all right at 11, which shows you exactly what you're going to get. Separating the 3 Glendale races, he has taken the checkered flag 9th 4 times this season, showing that his ceiling is simply too low when it just takes a mediocre start for him to miss double points. The high handicap hero of the round, given to a rider with a handicap of 10 or more that I think has a realistic chance to score massive points this weekend if you're the type of person that likes to sweat out a little LCQ action for a big point payout. This week, we are looking at the lowest of the double-digit handicaps in the 250 class and a guy that was on a factory bike not that long ago. Derek Drake was a Red Bull KTM athlete not that long ago, and all he did in 2020 on that bike was qualify for all 9 main events and finished in the top 10 in all but 1 of them. There are obviously a bit of physical concerns here, as the reason he missed most of last season was due to a rare and serious heart condition that required surgery to fix. But the 2018 Horizon Award winner has a ton of upside here at a 12 handicap. Moving on to the FFLs, Minneapolis' track map shows a short start straight, a rhythm and a half, a very small whoop section that ends with a dragon's back before a flat 180 into the finish. Looking at your 250 field, the best starter in the class last season were Jet, Austin, and RJ, who lined up against each other for the first 2 rounds of the series. RJ was 1 for 2 on FFLs, while Jet was 2 for 9. There's no good reason anyone should pick an FFL here, but if you feel so inclined, I think those are the 2 most likely candidates to pull the first one of the season. Jason Anderson takes his first FFL in the 450 class last weekend and also slides into the top 3 based on average start. With Kenny Ailing, Tomac looking spicy, and even Anderson added to the mix, I just can't fathom a scenario where you would gamble here unless you are playing for that Bogle jersey, and with that, my only advice is, don't. From sunny California to the bitter white north, Minneapolis has a bitter cold forecast for the indoor race with a high of just 17 degrees, but that will not affect the race at all, and luckily no precipitation in the forecast or in the stadium. The race day schedule is going to be a bit of a shock for most, with Race Day Live beginning right off the bat at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. local time in Minneapolis, and will be broadcast live on the Peacock app. RotoMoto Patreon supporters are the first to receive the cheat sheets as I post them to our private Discord as soon as each class wraps up, and then to the Patreon at wide at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. The standard cheat sheet hit the general public on the PulpMX Fantasy Twitter and Instagram shortly after, sometime between 3:30 and 4 p.m. Eastern. Then the picks lock and the gates drop at a very early 5 p.m. Eastern on CNBC and the Peacock app. After the race, feel free to join me over on my own YouTube channel for the RotoMoto post-race program immediately following the 450 podium ceremony, where I talk directly with you and other Supercross fans live on camera about the racing, the drama, the fallout, and of course, the fantasy results as they become available. Before I show you my early team for Minneapolis, I want to talk about Maxxis Tire coming on for all 17 rounds so I can deliver these videos for you. You know Maxxis Tire. You know their MX ST tire designed by the king of Supercross and my all-time favorite rider, Jeremy McGrath. It is the newest and most advanced tire in the Maxxis MX lineup, featuring an all-new tread pattern, compound, and composition to provide the stability, predictability, and traction that the upper tiers of motocross demand. The entire SGB Honda team runs Maxxis on their race bikes, including PulpMX show favorites and on-again, off-again rivals and best friends, Alex Ray and Cade Clayson. Available at your local retailer and also at motosport.com. My Thursday morning team looks like this. I have Jet Lawrence at a 1 for my All-Star. Supporting him is Pierce Brown with a -1 handicap. I'm taking a flyer on young privateer Joshua Varese, who is receiving generous support from that Rockstar Husqvarna team, and rounding out my 250s is Brazilian PulpMX Yamaha rider Enzo Lopes at an 8 handicap. 450 side, I have Cooper Webb at a 7, Sugar Shane McElrath at a 3 handicap despite being the most passed man in the 450 class this season, ever consistent Justin Brayton at a 4 handicap, and since it's gonna be a cold one, might as well take a flyer on Vince Freezy. The Moto Concepts rider will move up to the 450 class this weekend, with Mitchell Oldenburg dropping down. If you want a chance to win something like this front number plate fresh off of Christian Craig's Anaheim race-winning bike, consider joining the RotoMoto Patreon. For just about $1 per week, you support me immensely and help make it possible for me to make more content like this, but you are also entered to win Race Use autograph memorabilia from your favorite riders and fantasy darlings every single month. And sign up for the Insider tier for an additional entry into the giveaway, as well as an exclusive podcast talking fantasy stats on every rider in the field, as well as the enhanced cheat sheets that come out every single Saturday. Link for that will be in the description below. And don't forget to follow PulpMX Fantasy and RotoMoto on both Instagram and Twitter for injury updates as the weekend rolls on, qualifying info and stats and banter throughout the race itself, and those fantasy cheat sheets once qualifying is done and wrapped. Thanks as always for watching the PulpMX Fantasy Show presented by Maxxis. My name is Donnie, and may your chiz this weekend. Remember that 8 is great, and most importantly, have fun. Good luck, y'all.